how often do you get questions from dirt sheet guys verifying information?
No, ever.
Except Dave does.
Dave.
Like Dave, do you have your Dave, Nick, and any like, can you throw a name out there that says like at least this guy really?
No. Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are very willing to talk a bunch of stuff about AAA.
But it's the funny thing is, if you didn't have a source, I can understand. But if you've got the source, you can find me, you can get to me, or you can, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Why aren't you asking me?
Right.
You know, so you can get your story right. No, I'd rather ask somebody else because I don't like you personally because of you're very opinionated, or I think you're a dick, or whatever the reason is. It doesn't matter, bro. You got to be professional about your.
You know, it was funny. You know, back in the day, you know, like the dirt sheets were kind of like, but this is before, you know, where Meltzer before the internet. You know, the internet changed everything. But like, you know, you literally had to have actually physically in hand have the sheets. And they were literally just a bunch of sheets of paper stapled. Yeah. They call the sheets, you know, right? It wasn't like a newspaper or anything. It was just a bunch of sheets of paper stapled together, right? And Dave would send those out and stuff and everything. But like, if you were the old school genre, it was kind of like looked down upon if you were talking to the sheets because, you know, professional wrestling was still trying to protect the concept of kayfabe. And so there was always like this thing where the old school guys were trying to protect the business. They didn't want to talk to the sheets, or they had disdain for the dirt sheets because the dirt sheets were exposing the business to the marks. And you know, the bottom line is eventually everybody would be smart enough anyway, which is the defense you could say to the sheets that they're reporting stories about professional wrestling with people obviously interested in. So I was kind of brought up in that old school philosophy. I thought, you know, protect the business, kayfabe, you know, and stuff. But then as time went on and gradually, you know, Meltzer sheet became more popular. More of the boys were listening to it. But I still always thought, you know, you're not supposed to talk to the sheets because that's the way I was brought up. I broke in like 91, you know, so there was still that percentage. Like, Konnan, you the same thing. You were brought in the kayfabe culture. They I didn't go through this, but you did. You know, they were kayfabing you while they were training you, right?
Right.
Like they weren't fully just bringing you in and smarting you up right off the bat. They kind of had to earn your way into smarting you up more. And it's like, you know, whatever, which is incomprehensible in today's day and age. And we would think like, wow, wrestling really acted like that back then. You know, that's how protective the culture was of the business, right? So, but then I got like, you know, and then I said I never talked to the sheets until I was a big fantasy football mark. And I read one of the fantasy football magazines, and I looked on the back page, and Jason Powell was one of the associate, like one of the writer editors of the thing. I was like, is this the same Jason Powell that does the Pro Wrestling Torch stuff? So I reached out to him, and my initial reach out to him was about fantasy football. I wanted to talk to him, so I opened a dialogue and a discourse with him, and like he would needle me for information, and until I'd never talked to a dirt sheet guy before, right? But it just kind of like almost like an epiphany hit me. It's like, you know what? If this guy's willing to come to me and ask me the questions, I would probably I'd like to answer it honestly so the facts get out there as opposed to misinformation, like people writing dishonest things about people because they don't have any sources. They're just making stuff up. And so I kind of started thinking, okay, well, if Jason Powell wants to ask, I'm not going to offer information. If you have a question for me, I'm going to tell you the truth because I would rather the truth get out there. You know, of course, you know, and I never had the situation come up where they were asking me about something that would make a friend of mine look bad or compromise my friends, which I still would not do. I would just tell you guys, you know, I can't comment on that or like, because why would I? You know, that's kind of like I'd rather be a good friend than a good source. You know what I'm saying? So, but then I like kind of just opened up dialogue, and I kind of always thought, and then as it went along, and say, you know, I got on the booking committee, WCW and stuff, and all that, and I just saw like all the like the dirt sheets were writing about Russo and stuff, and I'm like, you know, why aren't any of these guys like calling any of us up to get our side of the story? Like Vince never got a call from somebody asking, "Could you verify this? Did you want to do this?" And I'm like the culture of the dirt sheets, I just completely soured on because like these guys just want to like drive their narratives, get their story, get their things out there for their fan base. But it's like, why are you guys scared to talk to the wrestlers and get their side of the story? I don't understand that. You're supposed to be a journalist. If a journalist calls you up and say, "Hey, I'm writing this, this is a story I got. Is this true?" I think pretty much everybody in the business, especially if it's about them, would prefer that you called them up and got the story from them. And it's just still to this day, like you see it, Konnan, like you said, only a couple guys ever call you, but you see a bunch written about AAA and stories out there. It's like, it's still a really committed community for journalism as a whole, holistically, that these guys do not even, they're maybe because they're marks and they're scared of the boys and they don't want, like, they're scared to call a guy like me up, or a guy like, I don't know what it is. What do you think it is, Konnan?
They're just, it's easier just be first than be right. You know what I'm saying?
Or not even be right. Just be first. It's better to better to be first. It's the best thing you can be is first, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what I meant. And so at the end of the day, it's going to be over in the next news cycle day. It's going to be over in a month, and they just keep, getting their hits and clickbait and all that, and they don't care who they hurt or what happens. And you've seen it's happened to people worse than us. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I don't even trip over it anymore. I don't part of the game. It's part and parcel, bro. Right. Especially if you're opinionated in this world where every day people want to seem to, tell you what to think or do. You know what I'm saying? I have a hard enough time thinking by myself without you having to think for me.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, we had a little so we recorded this week earlier in the week, a couple of days ago, and with a clip, we always send. Some of this stuff goes out on YouTube before it goes out on our show because we try to get stuff out there when we record. There's no use sitting on it because, like you said, the more recent your stuff is, the better it is because people get bored.
Real quick, just to clarify, what happened here was I was putting out a bonus mailbag. We had recorded this, and people were asking for the answers to these questions on Patreon. So I took 3 questions about that situation. I put them together. I put them on Patreon. I added them to that mailbag so it could go out so people could hear it. That's what happened there. Yeah.
But then Hughes got a hold of it and put it out on YouTube.
Yeah, he did today.
Okay, so the YouTube clip is out there, and apparently, Nick Hausman, who we were discussing, was one of the questions about Nick Hausman was, about the Jericho stuff. One of the questions asked, and I had listened to a clip of his and commented, on my opinion of that clip. And you too, Joe. We both heard it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And we commented on our YouTube channel, and Nick had an issue with quote unquote some misinformation that we were reporting that like he claims he's not, like I said, you said he sounds like he's backtracking. Yeah. I said he sounds like, I think maybe the verbiage I use, he's walking it back or so whatever. Okay. Yeah. And he's like sends you a text and stuff and everything, like talk about legal lawyers. He's getting harassed and death threat. I'm like, death threat. Okay, well, nothing we said here would any normal person that drives somebody to make a death threat towards Nick Hausman.
No, and I played it. I played it for some people, our clip, and just random people I know, my wife and stuff, and everybody said like, you guys you didn't say anything defamatory. You were really easy on them.
I want to play this clip so everybody can hear.
I don't even remember what even happened.
This is what we were commenting.
And it happened yesterday, I think.
Like we were discussing because like I was explaining to you what happened, and I was getting it's internet stuff, it's Twitter. I'm trying to remember the information, but this is the clip that I heard. Okay, and I want you to listen to this, and you tell me if what's your opinion of this? Because he'd been. Joe, what was the genesis? Because he had
he put out his show on the day of the pay-per-view, and he said he had a problem with MJF complimenting Jericho in the article because Jericho has skeletons in the closet, and he said Harvey Weinstein made good movies too, but his reputation's in tatters now, insinuating that Chris had skeletons similar to Harvey.
Right.
And so then...
which is direct words from his mouth.
Yeah, and let me show you this.
Compared to Harvey Weinstein, which, you said that, right? Okay, go ahead.
Take a look at this. This account says there's history with his accused behavior, and that's about Chris. Now, later on, she said, no, I was just speculating.
Wait, who is this? Did these people, who is ISO Wrestling?
It's just a wrestling account. I guess it's a podcast or something. And then this is the female wrestler that initially said, I wonder how many young women out there are wondering if it's safe to post about Jericho. And she tagged onto this and said, no, I was just speculating and probably shouldn't have posted that. Emotions were very high at the time and there were so many rumors. So that's a part of this too, because people saw that and thought it was part of it.
People are commenting on the Twitter, on the X-Banter banter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's basically what's going on. Like that. It's not, we're not a news source. We're having somebody call in our mailbag, ask us a question about this, right?
Yeah.
I listened to this, and this is what I was commenting on. Go ahead.
No.
Jericho misconduct allegation story. Now, obviously, a clip from our show went somewhat viral shortly after we recorded, talking about the Chris Jericho situation. Right now, I want to be very clear that my opinions of Chris are my opinions of Chris. I've heard a lot of things over the years. I don't personally like Chris Jericho. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. I think that there's a lot of issues there. There are other people that when issues come to the surface, it can take away from the legacy that they've created. And that is just a concern that I have for Chris. And that is all I ever meant by my comments. And that then elicited a thread, that clip, where other people were starting to allude to previous allegations against Chris, sexual misconduct allegations, some of them involving, I hate to say this because I have not personally mentioned her, and I really would like everybody to respect her privacy. And really, it's like so beyond at this point.
I think if anybody wants to know who it was, they can go look it up.
Yeah.
Just two things. When he says at the beginning, I'd like to talk about the Jericho misconduct allegations. That's your story. What do you mean you want to talk? Like, it's just out there. You started that story.
Right.
You know, so, yeah.
So maybe that doesn't sound like he's insistent he's not walking back the story, but he still hasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, has he told a story yet?
No.
Or is he just said that there's out, he's basically saying, I got the dirt on the guy, but I'm not going to report it.
Yeah, and I read.
Is that what it says? Is that what it sounds like?
For sure.
Okay, so in our opinion, that's what this sounds like.
Yeah, that's all.
Right. So it's like, I don't know.
And the thing is, when he says there's allegations against Chris, well, the thing is,
where are those?
I read Kylie Ray's Instagram post when she left AEW on the show when we recorded yesterday, and she never said that.
Tony never alluded to it.
Exactly. Yes.
She never alluded to it, but all of a sudden somebody's coming up and saying, well, there's something there that hasn't been alluded to, is what he's implying.
Right.
That there's more to, okay, well, what's the story?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, bro, are you literally just like trying to like come out and say like, hey, I got some dirt here, but I don't want to get kicked out of the AEW scrums, so I'm not going to report it. Which is what it like. Why would you not report a story if you're going to allude to it and not report it?
And a lot of people's criticisms was the fact that, Nick, how long did you know about this story? But you only brought it out because you're the guy, and people were kind of not pleased about that,
Right. So okay. So it is what it is. That is my opinion on this. I'm not reporting anything as fact. I don't know if you wanted to, what do you call it? Give me a strike for misinformation. This is my opinion of the situation. Konnan, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, I don't know what he wanted me to take down. The whole conversation, the fact that it's your opinion, like you said. And Nick, you've been on the show before. Come on here and speak your mind. You're not going to get ambushed, or you're not going to get, speak your mind. Don't say, oh, I'm going to get lawyers involved and all that. Dude,
for
really?
What? You really want to spend the money? What do you like? What are the chances of you like on a podcast that's opinion oriented, answering questions and giving our opinions of a subject matter? What you don't waste your money.
Somebody actually asked a question.
Save your money.
Right.
It's like it's a waste of time. Like, are you kidding me? If
you guys listen back to the clip that we released right at the beginning, I read Nick's tweet. I mean, I think the only thing he had a problem with was the fact that I said the word backtrack, and then I think
it's not a real big deal. It's not a real big deal,
okay.
dude. I mean,
but he wants to get the record. I'll put it out there. Nick Hausman is not backtracking on his comments. So okay, fair game. All right, so you're not. Right. But he's saying he's getting death threats. It's like, dude, do you think you're getting the death threats because you think that we're saying that you're backtracking when you're not, or do you think you're getting the death threats because you're making the allegations? Like that, it seemed to me like him throwing the stuff out there and would not explaining it or telling the story would be the stuff that would get him the heat. not a
Yeah.
podcaster saying, he's backtracking. So seriously, which one do you think a fan that's and not in the correct place that would get? If you're a Chris Jericho fan, would you get because I said he's backtracking, or get about the stuff that he's saying?
And we cover a lot on this show the differing camps with everything. It's either this hard side or this hard side. And right now it's either there's people on Nick's side that say Chris should never be on TV, and then there's people over here that are saying Nick should get off Twitter. He should never report again. Blah blah. So there's a lot of anger and vitriolic around about this.
And dude, let me tell you something. If you're somebody from the K100 community, okay, and you are harassing people like him, and just we condemn that, and we definitely disavow that. We're Absolutely. Not trying to promote that type of behavior, obviously.
No,
but that's common sense.
And I haven't seen anyone that's familiar to me, even in his tweets or anything. I didn't see that, so Yeah.
Right.
I'd like that. I'd rather sit for stuff that I should stand up for. Just because
you'll sit for everything, but stand for nothing. Right.
Standing's overrated.